So, play games or have your money work smart? You can money.
From NBC News, this is a special report. Here's Savannah Guthrie and Hoda Kotb.
And good morning, everybody. We come on the air with some sad news. Colin Powell, the former Secretary of State and Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, has died from complications from COVID-19. We want to get right to NBC's Chief Washington correspondent, Andrea Mitchell, who has the story. Andrea, what more can you tell us?
Colin Powell has been suffering for several years from multiple myeloma. That, as you know, is a disease, a cancer of the blood and bone. It is a very serious cancer. He was at Walter Reed. I've spoken with Peggy Sofrino, his longtime spokesperson, assistant, longtime colleague, and also to a family member. He had been suffering from this for quite some time, as I had known and as those close to him had known. As you know, he was first in the administration of Ronald Reagan. I first met him when he was Deputy National Security Advisor. He, of course, rose to become Chairman of the Joint Chiefs, had worked under so many presidents, and, of course, traveled with him extensively when he was Secretary of State. He has been a long-standing spokesperson, as you know, as well for minority rights and for the African-American community. He is so proud of what he sponsored, the Colin Powell Institute at City College in New York at CCNY. Savannah, you know all of the extraordinary history of this man. I was on the floor of the convention in 2000 in Philadelphia when Republicans booed him because he had been thought of at one point of running for president and decided not to even make that challenge. But he had stood out from his Republican Party even back in 2000 at that convention for speaking up for black rights and eventually did endorse Barack Obama, as you know.
You know, Andrea, we just got a statement actually from the family of Colin Powell, and they go on to say that he passed away this morning due to complications from COVID-19. They go on to say he was fully vaccinated. They say we've lost a remarkable and loving husband, father, grandfather, and great American.
He was 84 years old, and Andrea just detailed that he had also been suffering from multiple myeloma for many years, but there's no more recognizable figure, perhaps, in American politics than Colin Powell, who rose through the ranks 35 years in the United States military, then becoming the first African-American Secretary of State under former President George W. Bush, as somebody who was a leading voice in politics and also military affairs. I want to get to Kelly O'Donnell, our NBC White House correspondent, who, of course, covered the White House all those years when Colin Powell was there at those key moments in the war on terror after 9/11. Kelly, your thoughts this morning?
What a sad day, Savannah. This is a man who was not only prominent in his field, from soldier to statesman, he was also a very kind and pleasant man to interact with for all of us who had the opportunity to cover Colin Powell and to see his leadership. He rose through the ranks, as Andrea described, and made a huge impact as a figure leading soldiers, as a statesman on the world stage, not without controversy, of course. He presented the information when he was working for George W. Bush before the UN about weapons of mass destruction in Iraq that proved to not be accurate. And also, he was someone who put forward a huge imprint on the discourse of the time with his calm demeanor and also his experience, intellect, and knowledge. He remained on the national stage for all of these years as someone who could connect to the service members on the ground level as a military leader and to the political and statesman level of diplomacy around the world. A giant figure, one who will be remembered, and what a shock to lose him in this way with complications of COVID after being fully vaccinated, according to his family. Savannah?
He was a trailblazer for sure, born in the Bronx to Jamaican immigrants, rose through the ranks of the Army, first African-American National Security Advisor in the 80s under President Ronald Reagan, then later first African-American Secretary of State, decorated multiple times, a four-star general. Colin Powell, a legend in American politics and foreign policy.
Yeah, we're going to have a lot more on this throughout the morning, as well as on MSNBC and NBCnews.com. We will return most of you right now to today. This has been an NBC News special report.
In the Today Show again, and we're going to have a lot more on the life and career of Colin Powell later this morning, but we do want to check in with Al and get a check